time about how my boss confessed to me that he likes me and now he's pressuring me to go out with him. Disclaimers in my Storytimes, send me on Instagram. I've been working at my job for 6 months now. Ever since I started, my boss has been very, very nice to me. If he gets himself coffee, he usually brings me one, and he always offers to buy me my lunch. Of course, I usually say no because I always bring my lunch with me. And also, I just think it's weird that he's always offering. Several times I caught him staring at me, and he would offer to do random things, like walk me to my car. In other words, he was showing a lot of interest. At first, I just wanted to believe that he was just a really nice guy, but I noticed that he wasn't that way with anyone else except for me. So anytime that he would offer to do something for me, or if he would bring me coffee, I made sure to say thank you and seem grateful. I told my boyfriend about my boss, and my boyfriend was convinced that my boss liked me. He told me I shouldn't be as nice as I was, but I didn't want to seem ungrateful or rude. A few weeks ago, we had an office party. Of course, my boyfriend came along with me and everything was fine. Everyone brought their husbands and wives, including my boss. By the way, his wife is super beautiful and really nice. She even had the party catered by one of the best restaurants in town. As my boyfriend and I were heading home, he turns to me and tells me, "Your boss definitely likes you." I asked him why he thought that, and he said that my boss couldn't stop staring at me the whole night. That's when my boyfriend insisted that I should just quit. We got into a huge argument that night. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my boss confessed to me that he likes me and now he's pressuring me to date him. Part 2. My boyfriend told me that my boss had been staring at me the whole night. Then he started insisting that I should just quit my job. We basically fought the entire night. I told him I would never quit my job and that my boss was harmless. But it turns out that my boyfriend was right. When I went back to work, my boss started asking me a lot of questions about my boyfriend. He asked me how long we'd been together, if the relationship was serious, if we lived together. He tried to make it seem casual. On the 5th question, I asked my boss if he was okay. And he laughs and says, "I just want to make sure you got a good guy with you." But he sounded so jealous instead. A few days later, I caught my boss staring at me again. And this time I got really annoyed. I stared back at him and waved. That's when he waved back and smiled at me. At the end of the day, he offered to walk me to my car. And I said yes. As we were walking to my car, he starts telling me that he thought I looked really pretty at the party. And that he wanted to confess that he couldn't stop staring at me all night. That's when I turned to him and I said, "Yeah, my boyfriend noticed." He responds, "Well, your boyfriend's very lucky to be with you." And that I was clearly asking for attention with the dress that I wore. By the way, my dress was a long sleeve turtleneck that went below my knees. That's when he says, "There's nothing wrong with a little flirtation." Part 3 is up. Story time about how my boss confessed to me that he likes me and now he's pressuring me into dating him. After he told me that there was nothing wrong with us flirting, I told him it was totally inappropriate and that I didn't feel comfortable with that. He then laughed and said, "You'll loosen up eventually." I went home and I told my boyfriend everything. My boyfriend went berserk. He started insisting that I quit again. I told him I could handle the situation, that my boss was not going to do anything to me. He then got so mad that he actually left to his parents' house. He told me he would come back to live with me after I quit. But here's the thing, if the tables were turned, I would never ask my boyfriend to quit his job because his boss was flirting with him. I love my job and I don't think it's fair that I have to quit because my boss is flirting with me. Instead, I decided that I would go back to work and simply ignore my boss. But this actually had the opposite effect. My boss started coming on to me even stronger. He came up to me while I was having lunch and asked me if I was ignoring him. I was honest and said yes, a little. That's when he told me that we should talk after work. He walked me to my car and on the way, he told me that he likes me and that he's liked me since the day I started working there. He even said that it's pretty much the only reason why I got the job. But then of course he complimented me on all my work. As he was saying all of this, I just stayed quiet. I really didn't know how to respond. That's when my boss tells me that we should go on a date and that we could have a fruitful relationship. I love my job so much, I'm actually considering saying yes to at least one date. My boyfriend is still not talking to me, by the way. Now my boss even sends me text messages telling me how good I look in the office. And no, I can't report him to anybody. And I don't want to jeopardize my job. Last week, my boss even gave me a raise. And to be honest, I'm really happy about it. My dream is to buy myself a house. But at what cost? Should I say yes to just one date? Or should I say no and suffer the consequences? Or should I quit? But that's not fair either. What do you guys think I should do?
Am I wrong for telling my sister that she should have gone to college if she wanted a life like mine? My sister and I are twins, 33 female. We come from a culture where arranged marriages are an option. Mostly they are blind dates set by a matchmaker. And if you are compatible, you marry. When we both graduated high school, my sister, who by the way was valedictorian, chose not to attend college. She asked for an arranged marriage since all she wanted to be was a wife and a mother. Nothing wrong with that. My parents, who are a love match, tried to convince her to at least get her bachelor's. She refused. I, on the other hand, started attending an engineering college. I studied computer engineering. A year later, she married a man that she met through the matchmaker. He's a very nice guy, a teacher, and treats my sister like a queen. The thing is, he was just a freshly hired teacher. My sister went from living in a double-income house with parents both being high earners, a doctor and a lawyer, to a single-income house on a teacher's salary. I graduated at 23, started working as a cybersecurity personnel for a big bank. After 2 years of dating around, I too asked for an arranged marriage. My husband is a business owner, real estate developer, and he makes a lot more than I do. He also comes from money. My sister didn't like him from the get-go. She even threw a tantrum, thankfully in private, at my wedding. Apparently, the bridal gifts he brought were tacky. More like very expensive, more than what her husband could get her. The problem is that my first child is now at the age where she'll be starting preschool. We signed her for a private school. The monthly tuition is more than what her husband makes a year. When she heard this, she just exploded. She was ranting about how it's not fair that our kids will not have equal opportunities. How the only reason I could live like I do was that my parents chose a better husband for me. I became angry for how she treats me, how unfair she was to her husband and my parents. I told her I got matched with a better husband because I am a college-educated woman with a respectable job, and that wealthy men using matchmakers don't want 19-year-old high school graduates. Their standards are higher. I told her that her husband is a wonderful man who loves her, but if all she wanted was a wealthy man, she should have gone to college. Now she has no contact with me.
I'm 33 and my son 8 is extremely anxious when he has to be with a babysitter. This is because of the fact that he's extremely scared of the dark, and last year, his babysitter locked him in the basement for 6 hours while she had her boyfriend over. He was too short to reach the light switch and cried for hours because he was afraid. Ever since then, he has been extremely wary of strangers and gets too scared to be left alone with them if I'm not around. My husband worked overseas up until 2 months ago when he finally was able to get a position in his company here. So my son has not grown to fully trust him yet. He's been in therapy for a few months now, but I understand that every child is different and that each one progresses within their own pace. I called my cousin 29 and told her that I understand that she wanted no children at our wedding, which is completely reasonable because most kids are very playful, they enjoy running around and making noise, not exactly something someone wants during one of their most special days. So I explained that I would not be able to attend because I can't leave my son alone with a babysitter. However, my husband would still be attending for both of us. When she heard this, she immediately said that I can bring my son along. She knows that he's a shy boy and wouldn't even be noticeable during the wedding. I asked her multiple times if she was sure, and she assured me that it was not an issue, that it's her wedding and she's allowed to make any exceptions that she wants. My cousin and I are very close, as I had no siblings growing up, so she's like a sister to me. Her fiance called me as well to say that he had no issues with my son coming along. When we went to the wedding, everything went smoothly and it was such a beautiful moment. I was so glad that I didn't have to miss this because seeing my cousin in her white dress immediately brought me to tears. No one even really noticed that my son was there because he just sat beside me quietly, probably because it was a crowd filled with a lot of people that he didn't recognize. During the reception, a number of relatives came to me saying that I was disrespectful for bringing my child along after the invitation clearly stated it was a child-free wedding. I explained that my cousin was okay with it, and this caused an even bigger issue. The relatives said it was unfair that they couldn't bring their children and I was allowed to bring mine. They also said that my child was being a brat for not staying with a babysitter. I told them that it isn't their wedding, therefore they should learn how to mind their own business. My mother says that it was unnecessary for me to be rude to my relatives and I should have just explained the situation to them instead of causing problems with them.
If your best friends' names are Cameron, Alyssa, Jordan, Amy, Jasmine, Alexis, or Marley, you need to watch out for them because they are not your friends. Those were the names of my friends, and let me tell you what happened when we went on camp together. Out of all of those backstabbers, I was the only one accepted to all of our dream college. So they came up with this way to congratulate me and decided to take me on a free camping trip. It was all cap. By the camp, there was a lake. They rented out a boat. We bought the boat into the middle of the lake and started swimming. So they had this competition. Whoever could swim the furthest from the boat and then swim back in less than 60 seconds would get a prize. So everybody swam their little distances and then they came back. And then they told me, I dare you to swim even further out. And since you're the college student, we'll give you even more money. So I swam as far out as I could. And when I turned around, I heard the boat start back up and they were leaving. I was stuck in the middle of the ocean with no phone and no one to call.